Your boy, Rob Dyrdek. Do you remember that guy?
Vaguely. I remember his mess on MTV with ridiculousness. I think that was the thing.
Yeah, Rob Dyrdek had Fantasy Factory, Robin Big, which was him and Big Black. He's a skateboarder who was interestingly always into business from when he was young. Like he was making 300,000 a year at 21 years old as a skateboarder, which was unheard of just because he had hung around all these skaters and skateboarding, as crazy as it tries to be, ended up getting pretty narrow. There's pretty limited area of what you could do in skateboarding. Start skating, get a sponsor, take some photos and videos, put out some DVDs. Maybe a shoe company comes around and you get a deal with them or some shirts. And it was pretty like, okay, that's what you do. Rob started blowing that out the water. He's, hey man, we're gonna do all kinds of stuff. We're gonna start wearing different clothes. We're gonna start looking different. We're gonna start talking to different people. Start showing up in music videos. And what are you doing? You're a skateboarder. What do you? This is silly, man. You're supposed to be about the skate. He's, hey, I'm making 300,000 a year at 21. You can shut the hell up. Yeah, this video is fascinating. And here's the stat I want to lead with. But he's basically he was basically 60% of MTV for how many years? He basically controlled MTV for a long time, but at the peak, yeah, it was basically all Rob Dyrdek. 60% at least of MTV.
Amazing. Amazing. And thanks for sending the YouTube video. Just and maybe we'll put in the show notes or something, but this is a fascinating read for any influencer who's trying to figure out how they can take their influence to the next level. I think the thing you forget was that you're right. He was already a kind of like a pseudo businessman before he got into the content game. But so first, his passion was his sport, but then he found ways to make money by becoming like a shoe designer. He's doing okay. But it wasn't until he really got into the content game that everything blew up. Early 2000s, he was a skateboarder, a shoe designer, but then when he transitioned to movies and TV shows and his collaboration, DC Shoe Company,
Yeah.
it blew up because he saw what Bam Magora did with Jackass. He was selling, Bam Magora was also a skateboarder. We sold 3 times the number of skateboards than Tony Hawk, who was the god when it comes to
Yeah.
skateboarding, right? And so I want to be like that. So he negotiated a higher, less upfront pay that typically people get, but higher royalties on the back end. So basically, anything he sold, he would get more money for it, but he wouldn't get the big upfront payment. And so that allowed him to bet on himself and go all in on content. And I think that's what took him to the next level, right? Becoming more popular, which is similar to the story we see influencers do all the time. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Mr. Beast, but that content led the way from showing up in the TV, the movie Gumball 3000, to connecting with Rob Big Black, and they created the Rob and Big TV show, which was huge. Did you ever watch that show? I remember it. I just aged out. I
I
watched it.
actually I actually did. It was dumb late night or even early Saturday morning entertainment. It's like when you have a certain dynamic between two people that just works, it was just I can't describe it because there was such a good back and forth between these two characters. And then watching the shenanigans they went into, like a security guard for a skateboarder. The skateboarder is running up for a trick, and the security guard comes out, and because he's security for the skateboarder, one security guard go push over another security guard, and hey, that's dangerous. This man's doing a extremely dangerous stunt, and if you were to interrupt him, he could hurt himself, and it'd be a whole litigation. It's and it's funny because they both switch sides from trying to be the serious guy to the funny guy, and it was wild. It's funny.
So he cracked, yeah, he did. He figured out to make content work for him. To your point, between here's Rob, a small little white guy, to big, it was big black guy, right? Security guard, right? And so that content allowed him to help DC sell tons of shoes and tons of merch. I think it said it went from an $80 million company to a $500 million company just from Dyrdek alone. And Dyrdek was able to get up to went from 35,000 episodes to 150,000 per episode, roughly about 1.5 million for all 3 seasons. But it wasn't until he got to the big money when he got into the Fancy Factory, where he basically, it was his own fantasy, right? He produced that show. He was allowed to sell his own toys and merch on the show. And he also created his own kind of brand integration deals with SvB and Microsoft and other big brands to advertise on the show, help pay for the show, but also he did deals on the back end with them for his own businesses. So that's what allowed him to make millions, multi-millions of dollars, man. And the ridiculousness was a part of that. And that became the next generation of what America's Funniest Home Videos. And because they could put it on anytime and it did about the same 3 a.m. to 3 p.m., MTV just said this is a cheap thing to produce. Nothing else is working. So let's get more of it. And Rob just got money over money. Fascinating story, man. I was just amazed.
Yeah, shout out to Patrick CC, YouTuber who put that together. Yeah, and it's just another sign of the changing times, man. Him and Mr. Beast, we'll see if Mr. Beast makes the new MTV. He's a new Dyrdek of this era.